If there's an argument for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate being anything but the Ultimate Smash Bros. Game, I'd love to hear it. Unless it's from you hardcore Melee fans. Shh. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is true to its name as it features an absurd amount of content. I mean, just look at the character screen. There are over 70 of them, both old and new. And check out the stage selection screen. There are 103 of them. And that's not even to speak of the adventure mode that takes upwards of 40 hours to complete, or a variety of new multiplayer modes that put a new spin on how you play Smash. There is so much content here that even in the week or so I've had with the game, I still haven't been able to fully explore everything. Consider this. If you spend even just 20 minutes with each character, that would consume a full 24-hour day. Whoa. Now, Nintendo accomplished this, of course, by relying heavily on Smash Bros. History, bringing back every fighter and almost every stage while adding some new ones into the mix too. But even the returning content hasn't gone untouched, as every single fighter has been reworked to some degree, whether it's being rebalanced, given a new look, or provided with some entirely new moves and animations. These upgrades are even more apparent when it comes to the stages, as every single one from the non-HD era has been completely remade from the ground up, and they universally look drop-dead gorgeous. Congo Falls now looks lusher than ever and features more realistic rapids, and the attention to detail in Great Bay is unreal, which is really making me long for a true HD remake of Majora's Mask. Even the palm trees sway in the background now. I really could go on and on with examples, but rest assured that these stages have never looked better, even the Smash 64 ones, which now look much sharper without betraying their classic nature. Of course, it's not just old content here, as there's a smattering of new stuff too, such as 11 newcomers, which is less than any other game in the series, including Smash Bros. 64. However, the newcomers are a blast to use across the board, with each one feeling unique, aside from the Echo Fighters of course. Simon and Richter are true labors of love that really embrace their Castlevania heritage, with a lumbering feel to their movement, but have quick whip-based attacks. Whereas Inklings' unique ink-based attacks that deal increased damage to ink-covered enemies adds an interesting new wrinkle. And Incineroar's grappling-based moveset truly stands out among the cast, especially when paired with his showboating attitude. And of course, King K. Rool is just a beautiful work of art in every possible way. So although the newcomers are fewer in numbers than ever before, they're also among the most distinctive group that Nintendo's made yet. It's seriously impressive that so many characters can stand out among a cast this large. Unfortunately, on the other hand, there are only 4 new stages, which is incredibly light by Smash Bros. Standards. But it's hard to be too upset when you remember that there are 99 others. And at the least, the 4 new stages are fun and do a great job representing the games that they're from, whether it's descending the slopes of Moray Towers, or climbing to the top of New Donk City while collecting musicians that enhance the stage's music. It's clever stuff. And speaking of music, how can I not mention the soundtrack, which is simply fantastic. There's something here for everyone and more, with over 800 songs that consist of tracks from previous Smash Bros. Games, the original game series, as well as entirely new remixes, like this catchy rendition of GameXplain Galleon, or an even punchier version of Delfino Plaza. And I much appreciate that the stages of the same series now share a track pool rather than being stage specific. And not only is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate beautiful to listen to, but to look at as well. This is a gorgeous game with lighting that's vastly improved from the Wii U version that really helps bring these worlds to life. And it runs near perfectly too at a rock solid 60 frames per second, barring only a handful of instances where things got a little too hectic with 5 or more players. Which, by the way, I love that 8 players are now supported as a standard feature on every stage, even if it can be a little much at times on some of the smaller stages. And that does lead into one of my complaints, because even in battles with as few as 4 players, and especially more, I often struggle to keep track of my character compared to past games in the series. And almost everyone I played with had the same complaint. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why this is, but it's likely due to a variety of factors. The faster gameplay, the silly amount of smoke clouds that appear when you're hit, and perhaps even the more realistic lighting, which can make it hard to see your character in dark areas, such as those covered in shadow. So hopefully this can be addressed in the patch, or maybe I'll just get good, but it has been a slight annoyance all the same. It perhaps won't come as a huge surprise that Ultimate's core gameplay is overall similar to Wii U's, but there are enough changes and new ideas to make it feel suitably distinct. This time, the action has been noticeably sped up across the board, resulting in even more frantic gameplay that's closer to Smash Bros. Melee than ever before, especially now that directional air dodges are back too. Furthermore, the game prevents abusing some lame stalling techniques, such as how waiting on the spawn platform now results in a smaller invulnerability window after dropping down, or how grabbing a ledge a few too many times in a row will eventually result in you being unable to grab it at all, or how rolling or dodging too much will result in fewer invincibility frames for subsequent dodges. These are all good changes that improve the feel and pace of battle. Furthermore, Ultimate takes the general presentation to a whole new level. There are new versus splash screens before every battle, a score pops up in one-on-one stock matches, in which the camera is also more dynamic, zooming in with a dramatic slow motion effect to showcase powerful and stock-ending attacks. I love it. It makes landing one of those attacks immensely satisfying. Ooh yeah. Oh, and the menus are actually well laid out this time, making it a breeze to find the options that you want, which is a welcome reprieve from the disaster that was a Wii U's menu. Beyond the core gameplay, Ultimate introduces some fantastic new modes and options that really expand how you can play the game, such as the final smash meter that really changes the dynamics of the battle. Just knowing that you or your opponent might be on the cusp of getting a final smash adds another layer of strategy, even if it can lead to some truly chaotic matches, especially with 4 or more players. Although, for better or worse, not every final smash is created equal, with some clearly being worse than others, such as Rosalina's that's all too easy to avoid on a larger stage. So it is another factor to consider when choosing a character. There are a couple of new stage options too. The hazard toggle is a godsend that can make some previously obnoxious stages like Wally Castle and its Yellow Devil boss actually viable to have fun with. And the new stage morph feature, which dynamically bounces between 2 different stages mid-match, is both fun and hilarious, with a transition often leading to some unpredictable results as everyone tries to get resituated. Smashdown is another fun new mode where you play through a series of matches with an ever-shrinking roster, as each character can only be used once. It requires you to think fast in selecting a character, while also forcing you out of your comfort zone when your go-to characters are all used up. It's a fun new way to play, although it can be a bit of a time sink in order to play through a full round given the 70+ character roster. And finally, there's Squad Strike, which is a brilliant new mode in which every stock is a different character. So after selecting your set of 3 or 5 characters, you and your opponent then secretly set the order of their appearance for the battle itself. It's pretty fun to try and predict who your opponent will lead or end with in order to inform your own choices. Taken all together, these modes really add a fresh new take on how you play Smash Bros., and helps breathe new life into what might otherwise be largely familiar content for many. Okay, now single player has never been quite Smash Bros.' strong suit, as Brawl Subspace Emissary proved, which was incredibly ambitious, but ultimately lackluster. And now Ultimate offers its own take on a meaty single-player campaign, this time in the form of an adventure mode called World of Light. And World of Light makes a very good first impression. It opens with a beautiful cinematic that mirrors how Infinity War ended, which is to say, epically, and also a little distressingly. The stakes have never been higher, and sees poor Kirby setting out alone on a quest to reclaim the spirits of the fallen fighters, among the spirits of hundreds of other lesser-known characters too. Now to do so, you'll explore a sprawling world map packed with spirit battles. In each one, a spirit possesses one of the fighters they can then reclaim by, what else? Smashing the crap out of them. These spirits can then be equipped to upgrade your character's stats or gain a special ability, like starting the battle with a particular item, or gaining immunity to particular hazards, like lava floors. And you'll find yourself swapping those spirits in and out frequently, if not with every battle, because every battle has its own unique set of circumstances based around that particular spirit. And it's that element that's one of the coolest things about World of Light. Take the Rivali spirit battle for instance, in which you face off against a possessed Falco in the skies above Hyrule while contending with high-speed winds, which just so happens to be Rivali's specialty. It oftentimes really does feel like you're battling the spirit itself, as opposed to just the character they possess. Or in one of my favorite examples, a giant ghostly white Wii Fit trainer is flanked by 2 smaller Meta Knights, which is meant to represent Roger the Potted Ghost from Yoshi's Island and the two Shy Guys that protected him. And in a Geno Spirit battle, you'll take on the entire core cast of Super Mario RPG, with the role of Mallow being portrayed by a white Kirby. Yeah, this is probably the closest we'll ever get to a proper Super Mario RPG too. Now, the connection to the spirit isn't always immediately obvious, but it's still an amazing level of detail that's fun and rewarding to try and deduce, assuming you're familiar with the spirit. If you're not, good luck trying to figure them out. And with there being so many obscure spirits, there's a good chance even the most veteran of gamers will be left scratching their head at times. But for as cool as the attention to detail in the spirit battles are, it's not enough to overcome the fact that, at the end of the day, this is just a series of CPU battles strung together. And even with the varying circumstances, they all start to blend together after the first few dozen. Especially since the game makes it all too easy to equip spirits that mitigate the very factors that make the matches unique in the first place. Is the fog here giving you trouble? Well, just equip a spirit that gets rid of it entirely, effectively turning it into just any normal Smash match. Basically, with the right spirits, you can engineer the uniqueness out of every battle, which is all too easy to do as the game can even automatically equip the ideal spirit set if you want. And you'll probably want it to, since selecting them by hand every few minutes across hundreds of battles quickly grows tiresome. And with there being hundreds of spirit battles spread across a 30 to 40 hour campaign, it starts to become incredibly repetitive, particularly as I was able to mindlessly smash attack my way to victory in most of the battles. And it doesn't help that the goal of every single battle is simply to KO your opponent, rather than the much more varied objectives of event matches from past games. There's almost no story or cutscenes to speak of, and outside of a handful of boss battles and exploring the world map, there's little else to distract from the monotonous matches. I was so ready for it to end by the 10-hour mark, but it kept going and going and going for over 20 hours more. It's way too little, spread way too thin. And were it not for the purpose of this review, I probably would stop playing it entirely, even if some areas on the world map are pretty neat, with some fun callbacks to classic games. Now, besides World of Light, the single-player offerings are relatively sparse. Spirit Board is just more spirit battles without World of Light's presentation, which is the last thing I wanted to do after nearly 40 hours of them. And then there's Classic Mode, where each character has a unique theme that carries through a series of 7 battles. Reuse has him taking on opponents 1 vs 1 as if it were Street Fighter, whereas Wolf has him battling other fighters that were cut from either Smash Bros. Brawl or Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS. The themes are a fun idea, but the replayability is heavily dependent on your tolerance for CPU battles. Myself, I'd rather just play against actual humans. Oh, and the bonus platform stage grows old quick, as it's not very fun and is always the same for each character. Now, while multi-man battles do return from past games in the form of Mob Smash, there are some notable absences like Home Run Contest and Break the Targets. Neither of which bother me that much since I've had my fill from past games, but it is a bit of a bummer that they couldn't make a return in some form for the ultimate version of Smash Bros. Unfortunately, online play was not made available during the review period, so we'll be following up with our impressions of how it works soon. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is an amazing trip down memory lane, while allowing for the creation of all new ones. It proves that the core gameplay is as strong as ever, especially now that it's been sharpened even further with some smart gameplay tweaks, new modes, fun new characters, and a great presentation. Yeah, it's a bummer that World of Light is a repetitive slog, but ultimately, Smash Bros. For me is all about the multiplayer experience. So not even a subpar single-player experience can change the fact that Ultimate is a blast in playing with friends. So, like I said at the start of the review, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate really is the ultimate form of Smash in nearly every way. Except for maybe one, because this much nostalgia comes at a price: novelty. This time, the novelty lies in the sheer amount of content, rather than the content itself. So while there's a ton of stuff to play around with here, it's also very familiar, at least if you're a longtime Smash Bros. Fan. So although I truly do love that everyone is here, it doesn't feel quite as fresh as it has before, especially 6 iterations in. But again, the new modes and options really do a great job of showcasing everything in a slightly new light. So at this point in time, I like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate a lot. It's simply a smashing time through and through, besides World of Light. And I expect that to be the case for years to come. And of course, if you haven't followed this series as extensively as I have, then you're in for an even greater treat, as a lot more of this content might be entirely new to you. So regardless of whether you're a newbie or just coming back from a Smash Bros. Break, there has never been a better time to jump back in and have a smashing good time. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and of course make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for tons more on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and all things Nintendo too.